All right, good afternoon to everyone and welcome to today's Design Review Panel virtual meeting. This is the first item on our agenda today, reviewing the development proposal for 26 West Avenue in Hamilton. My name is Edward Winter. I am the host of this meeting, but panel member David Clouseau will chair the meeting. In addition to panel members, we have the applicant team, city staff, members of the public, and media observing this meeting. Members of the public are reminded that we're here to observe and commenting will be reserved for the panel members and the applicant team. As I mentioned, we are recording this session and it will be uploaded on the DRP webpage. And just a reminder to keep your microphones muted if you're not speaking. Thank you. David, we are ready to begin when you are.
Okay, good afternoon and welcome everyone. Edward, can you please confirm that this session is being recorded? And are there any changes to the agenda today? I'm not hearing you, Edward, by the way.
Oh, my apologies. Yes, I can confirm we are recording
Okay.
and there are no changes to the agenda.
Yeah, and are there any, I'm assuming that there are no panel members who have conflicts of interest on this subject, and I'm going to take silence as that acknowledgement. The first item on the agenda today is the review of 26 West Avenue South. The lead planner on the file is Jennifer Allen. Good afternoon, Jennifer. We're ready for your presentation, and please keep the presentation to under 10 minutes.
Thanks, David. Share my screen. All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Jennifer Allen. I'm a planner 2 in the development planning section. Today, I'll be presenting the proposed development for 26 West Avenue South. So the proposal is to construct a 3-story front addition and a 1-story rear addition to the existing multiple dwelling building on the subject lands. This will establish a total of 14 units within the building. Subject lands are located on the west side of West Avenue South, which is just south of Main Street East and north of Hunter Street East, and in between Wellington Street South and Victoria Avenue South. The site is surrounded by various low-rise multiple dwellings and single detached dwellings, as well as a department store at the corner of West Avenue South and Main Street East, and a place of worship on the opposite corner. This is a view of the subject lands looking west on West Avenue South. This is the view of the rear of the site, looking east from the adjacent alleyway. This is the view of the rear of the site and the surrounding area looking north from the alleyway. The view looking north on West Avenue South. The view of West Avenue South looking south. And the view looking east on West Avenue South from the site. So this is a copy of the proposed site plan showing the proposed additions. This is the east elevation, so the front elevation, the west/rear elevation, south elevation, and the north elevation. And then this is renderings of the proposed building. So the subject lands are identified as Downtown Urban Growth Center on Schedule E of the Urban Hamilton Official Plan. And the subject lands are designated Downtown Mixed Use Area on Schedule E1 of the Urban Hamilton Official Plan. So some major policy themes within the official plan are that the Downtown Urban Growth Center shall be the preeminent node in Hamilton due to its scale, density, range of uses, function, and identity. It shall be designed with a strong pedestrian focus to create a comfortable and animated pedestrian environment. The downtown mixed-use area shall serve as a central focus for the city by creating a sense of place. increasing the number of people who live and work in the downtown shall enhance the day and night activity and contribute to the planned function as a vibrant people place. So some urban design policies include respecting existing character, development patterns, built form, and landscapes, promoting quality design consistent with the locale and surrounding environment, contributing to the character and ambiance of the community through appropriate design of streetscapes and amenity areas, and complementing the existing massing patterns, rhythm, character, color, and surrounding context. So the subject lands are located within the downtown Hamilton secondary plan area, and the subject lands are designated as downtown residential. Major policy themes for the downtown Hamilton secondary plan include that development shall be massed to frame streets in a way that respects and supports the adjacent street proportions. Development shall be compatible with the context of the surrounding neighborhood. Development shall contribute to high quality spaces within the surrounding public realm and within the buildings themselves. Development shall be oriented towards the surrounding streets and shall include direct pedestrian access, including barrier-free access from grade level to the principal entrances. The subject lands are zoned D5, downtown residential zone, which permits a multiple dwelling. Some of the applicable regulations include a minimum building height of 7.5 meters and a maximum building height of 22 meters. There's a minimum of 4 square meters of amenity area required for each dwelling unit, and there's a minimum 10% landscaped area for the entire lot. So these areas of discussion today are: does the proposal conserve and respect the existing built heritage features of the area? Does the proposal use materials that are consistent and compatible with the surrounding context? And does the proposal contribute to the character and ambiance of the community through appropriate design of streetscapes and amenity areas? So that concludes my presentation. Feel free to, I'm happy to answer any questions.
I think at this point we'll go to the applicant's presentation. Thank you, Jennifer. So we're ready for the consultant to provide additional information. Please to keep the presentation to under 10 minutes as well.
Hello, everyone. My name is Conrado Tabonan. Let me just share my screen here. Can everyone see my screen?
Yep.
Okay. Okay. Senior architectural technologist with Grace Wang Architect Inc. here in Ancaster. Joined with me is Grace Wang herself. So this is a site plan amendment application required to facilitate the proposed development located at 26 West Avenue South. The subject project is within the downtown Hamilton secondary plan. It's located within the Stinson established historic neighborhoods, and it's adjacent to major arterial roads, Main Street East to the north, Wellington Street North to the west, and Victoria Avenue to the east. It's very close proximity within shops, restaurants dotted in yellow, public transportation routes in white, and public parks in green. Some of the proximity landmarks includes the First Place Hamilton and the Landmark Place. Just taking a closer look at the site. So the subject property is located on a streetscape comprised of cluster brick multiple dwellings, including walk-ups and semi-detached dwellings. Figure A is taken from corner of Main Street East and West Avenue South. To the right is the Charisma Church. To the left is the Canadian Tire department store. Figure B is along the West Avenue South. The subject property would be at the center of the photo, covered in the greenery. Figure C along the alleyway. Building on the right, number 38, is also owned by the same owner. Now, these are the existing photos at the existing building. So the existing building is a 3-story multi-unit residential, currently unoccupied. Figure D, E, and F is the front building facade facing West Avenue South. Figure G, H, and J is the rear of the building, adjacent to the alleyway access. The existing garage on figure G and H is to be demolished, as well as the existing wood fire escapes along the side of the building. Just a little bit of a heritage background based on city staff comments. So the building was originally constructed as a 2-story brick dwelling around early 20th century and was adopted into a 3-story building, and it has grown with the city ever since. On this slide, just to show the artistic rendering that being proposed. And figure L shows demolition components, includes the garage, fire escape stairs, and some concrete sidewalks. This also includes the proposed addition, 1-story addition at the rear of the building, and a 3-story addition at the front of the building. This slide to compare our proposed design. So the existing building has this balconies at the front with distinctive brick vertical entryway. And our proposed facade also includes some brick veneer, stone veneer, and a bit of aluminum composite cladding. The subject property is downtown residential T5 zone. It is within the downtown mixed-use area on Schedule E of the Urban Hamilton Official Plan. It's considered as a downtown residential low-rise, and it's in the location where there may be impacted use on Appendix C of the Downtown Hamilton Secondary Plan. This is the building model of the proposed development perspective views. The top left corner of the page is the perspective view West Avenue South, and the bottom left corner would be the adjacent to the alleyway. The figure on the right shows the existing building structure, 3-story, and the additions. So this is our proposed site. Access to the principal entrance comprised of 2 concrete walkways, one at the center leading directly to the principal entrance, one at the bottom south, which connect into a slope walkway which leads into the principal entrance, suitable for bare-free access. The back of the building, we're trying to maintain the 3 existing parking spaces. We've also located areas for bike parking. The entrance for the 1-story addition would be along the existing alleyway access. The landscape design on this was designed by a local landscape architect. All the rainwater, we try to pond them within the soft landscape on such a small site. And the existing trees can be replaced as required, and some sodding at the front entrance there. Just to show the landscape plan on this one.
You're running up to your limit of time, 10 minutes here,
Okay,
Conrado, so maybe you might want to
sure.
cover the rest.
Okay, so this is the west and east elevation. East is the front, okay, west is the rear. And again, where we're showing Vic veneer, stone veneer for the cladding, stucco for the to wrap the existing brick. The south elevations and the north elevation. This is just to show the building section relative to the property line and to the edge of the road, and what the pedestrian view towards the 14-degree angular plane. Moving on to the floor plan, the basement has 3 units. The basement, which has the windows for the bedrooms and living rooms. Ground floor plan has 5 units. The second and the third floor plan has 3 units. So that goes up to 14 units total for this development. I think that should be it. Thank you.
Thank you, Conrado. So is Hoda is, I'm going to turn it over to our panel members for questions of clarification. And I think Hoda is the first on the list here.
Hi, David. Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I just have 2 questions. One of them is related to facade and matching the facade to the heritage features of the area. Just wondering about the aluminium, using aluminium. Just wondering if there is any aluminium has been used in that area.
I believe so. The adjacent property, let me just see what's the. Can I just share my screen here for a second?
Sure.
Go back to my slide. You see the building 18 here. They've introduced some of aluminum cladding on the facade. So
Okay. So that's the new building. It's not considered as a heritage feature to have in your facade. Okay. I have another question about the one-story building that you added at the back. I was wondering, is there any reason it's just one story? Was it possible to have three-story matching the existing one?
I'm not quite sure what's the background on that.
This is
Oh,
Grace
okay,
Wen here. If you don't mind me jump in, Conrado.
sure, go ahead, please.
Yeah, the reason it's only because if it goes up to 3 stories, A is access. We don't really have access to the back. B is it will block windows of the other units on the upper floors.
Okay. So it seems that you wanted to change the interior design as minimum as possible to keep the existing.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. It's from me. It's enough.
Joey, you're next for questions.
Thanks, David. Thank you for the presentation. Maybe the first one's for Jennifer. The property is on Hamilton's Built Heritage Inventory. Was there a request or requirement for this project to submit a cultural heritage impact assessment?
Hi there. No CHIA was requested with the comments. However, there were comments submitted by cultural heritage staff that did request revised elevations.
Okay.
So
What the revised elevation, is it possible to quickly share those comments or put them in the chat? And then maybe I can follow up with the comments rather than spend
yeah,
time
sure.
here.
I can just quickly summarize maybe. I mean, I didn't write the comments, but just looking at them, they were hesitant for the front addition and just they had some concerns with the building materials and maintaining the character of the early 20th century apartment walk-up buildings. So
Okay. Yeah, thank you. I think that's helpful. And then maybe this question's for Conrado or Grace. What was the motivation or the inspiration for the proposed front facade? I think this maybe aligns with some of the comments you're getting from Heritage at the City.
So the front facade is very, we believe it's very reminiscent of the existing facade. So we're still using brick veneer and introducing some stone veneer. The windows, the left and the right of the addition has this distinctive feature from the existing that looks like balconies. And at the center of the addition, we've introduced aluminum cladding with some printed feature on it, just to give interesting element into the front entryway.
Well,
Which
one
is
thing
also
is,
go ahead.
sorry to jump in. We did not do that intentionally, but after several iterations of the facade, we landed on this something very much has this art modern kind of feel to the new facade. And we think it is actually appropriate for the era of the original building.
Mm.
And it's a little bit too much look like Hamilton PHMB station, but it wasn't intentional. And we may do something to make it look less like it, maybe in color, but we feel this gives it a look of permanence, and it does look residential and does look the period of the original building.
Thank you, Grace and
Yeah.
Conrado. Thank you. That's all for me.
Eldon, you have any questions?
I do. Thank you, David. And thank you for the presentation. Question of clarity. So I understand, I guess I'm trying to understand, can you help me determine where the amenity space is intended to be for residents within the building? Making sure everyone can still hear my question.
Understand your question. When you say amenity space, are
I can
you
clarify.
referring-
The building right now, units benefit from existing balconies. And through this expansion, it appears that the balconies are removed in favor of the extension of the building. And it's not clear whether there is a dedicated indoor or outdoor amenity that all can share in lieu of not having any, I guess, individual private amenity.
There is a lobby space which is added to the ground floor. The current building has no lobby. Basically, you enter into a landing and then you go upstairs. Conrado, could you move to ground floor plan? So we now do have a lobby space with a vestibule and a seating area and a space for hangout and waiting. And then instead of having all kinds of the original building has about 5 or 6 mishmash of wood fire escapes, and which is terribly unsafe and in dilapidated condition. So through this intervention, we actually introduced 2 staircases. So the 2 means egress is resolved inside the building. And the rear addition, the 1-story addition facing alleyway, has its own little deck space. And the closed balconies basically becomes bedrooms with large windows. And so there is no particular, say, party room or anything in this building. However, as you can see, actually the units are quite comfortable. The smallest units is about 500 square feet. And it's larger than the new condominium buildings. So that's
Okay.
how we see this. Yeah.
Follow-up question to that. I guess the deck, or I believe it's labeled on this plan, the courtyard for the unit that's attached to the back. So I understand now that that's a private deck enjoyed by that unit. Looks like 105. Is there so that's only accessed from that unit? Is that the understanding?
Correct.
If that's the case, what is the purpose of the stairs?
To bring person down to the level where they can actually get out.
And is there an easement on the adjacent property to provide for that connection?
There is a agreement between I think there is a encroachment agreement between the owners, and there is some sort of, I don't know if it's easement or not, but this is a concern, I guess, when we apply for building permit, they're gonna raise. There might be one. There may have to be one.
Okay, thank you. Those are my questions.
Yana.
Sorry, I was muted, and I apologize. I can't seem to be able to start my camera. I don't have any additional questions. My questions were answered. Thank you.
I think Dana is not able to be here today, so Jennifer.
Thanks, David, and thanks, Jennifer and Conrado, for your presentations. Conrado, you mentioned barrier-free access in your presentation, but I only see stairs on the site plan. I was wondering if you'd walk me through how barrier-free access is achieved?
For the principal entrance,
If that's what you were referring to, yeah.
could you see my mouse?
Yeah.
It's through here. So this is the principal entrance, and you have a sloping walkway that goes into the existing sidewalk.
Okay.
Which also connects out to the back.
Okay, so all of the ground floor units are accessible then?
Actually, could you go to the first floor just to?
No, actually, only the lobby is accessible. Ground floor units is not.
Okay.
Do you have any other questions, Jennifer?
I guess my follow-up is, since you've given accessible entry to the front of the building, was there any consideration for having accessible access to any of the units? And why wasn't that feasible if you did look at it?
It is just not possible to do because the way existing building is it's half floor up, half floor down, and it's way too much level difference to actually create a accessible unit, and it is not required.
Okay, thanks, Grace.
Yeah.
That's all my questions.
Ted, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I do. I have a few questions. So maybe if you could just be succinct in the responses. Is this a rental, and who is this being rented to? Are you the operator?
The client is a developer who owns these buildings, and he buys out these buildings. He make investment in it, and he rents them out. Yes, they will be rental units.
Okay, so they're market rental units.
Yeah.
And this is really an entire gut and renovation of this building, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and there's no comment around mechanical, but can you tell me, will there be central air conditioning? If so, where will the AC unit live? Will there be window units? Will there be any air conditioning? Can you tell us a bit about that?
The mechanical units is the heating and the makeup air unit. So the makeup air unit will be on the roof, and the air conditioning will be dealt with split units, wall mounted, and with the condensers on the roof.
Okay, so each of these units, of which there's 4 to 5 per floor, and each of those rooms will have a air conditioning unit associated with each room?
May not be associated with each room, and we will have a wall-mounted split air conditioning unit as it's most possibly in the living room area, and it could be ducted. Some of the split units could be ducted to the bedroom if necessary, but that's not 100% resolved yet.
Right. So at minimum, there's at least four split units, one per unit at each floor that are on the exterior of the building, that will be at the exterior of the building.
No, it wouldn't be, because the split unit, the condensers will not be on the facade, will be on the roof.
On the roof. Okay.
Yeah.
But there's not a unit on the side of the building then that's drawing air, etc.
The air intake would be through, will be on the side, it will be in the basement. You're saying, well, split unit really doesn't have, doesn't need a grill on the side of the building for
Okay,
intake, right?
thank you. Okay. And then you're entirely recladding this building in stucco. Can you tell us why?
It is not, okay, let me just think this, because
Will it be insulated as part of your renovation?
stucco, its EFIS system actually provides insulation.
Okay,
But
so it's an EFIS system. It's not
yes,
stucco on brick, but it's a EFIS. So there's a insulated material that the stucco is applied to on the exterior of the brick. Yes.
correct.
Okay. And are there energy efficiency goals then that you're targeting in
No,
this project? Okay.
no.
Sustainable goals. And then have you accommodated for garbage and recycling? I don't see anything pertaining to that in your landscape plans.
It will be curbside pickup, and there is a storage unit, garbage in the basement. But
So all the residents take the garbage and recyclables to the basement, and then someone takes them out of the basement to the street?
correct.
Or they don't sit outside and on the rear?
Correct.
Okay. That's all my questions. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Well, I don't have any questions, so I'm going to turn it over to Hoda for commentary.
Yeah, thank you again for presentation, and thank you. It's I appreciate keeping the existing building, and you have tried. I see that to have the same facade based on the design, having the tower. I appreciate that. I recommend to overview the material to have something more similar to the area based on the color and the bricks and so on. Rather than that, I have no more comments. Thank you.
Joey.
Thanks, David. I think that the merits of this building is that it takes an existing building, historic or otherwise, and it repurposes it, and it provides densification and additional housing, which is we all know is very much required in cities. My concerns are I have a couple of concerns. One is and aligns with the city's concerns about the proposed or reestablished style of the front of the building. And Grace, I do agree that art moderne matched the period, and it could also be suitable for residential. But for me, I'm looking at the larger neighborhood, at the Stinson, the character of the Stinson historic neighborhood. And art moderne as a style throughout this neighborhood is not typical. It's more red brick. It's more Victorian, Bay and Gable, also Edwardian, a much more modest. Art moderne is something that is more kind of streamlined and slick and a very different approach. So although I appreciate aligning with the proportions of the existing facade, which I very much agree that you do, I'm a bit concerned about matching the style or proposing a new style for it. And I think maybe this ties into, and Hoda brought it up as part of her questions, about thinking about adding completely onto the back of the building. I understand that there would be windows blocked, but in the same way that you're providing windows on the front facade, you could also provide windows on the back facade and also on the side facade. So almost kind of taking that density at the front and moving it all the way to the back, extending the corridor and creating units on that side. And then also just restoring the building and keeping it very simple. I think this would have a minimal impact on the building. It would ensure that it retains its historic character and quality within the neighborhood. And I think you'll still be able to achieve your requirements of adding additional residential density on this property.
If you're finished, Joey.
Yeah, I'm done. Thank you.
Eldon?
Thanks, David. And again, thank you for your presentation. I think it's actually quite wonderful that you're taking an existing building and enlarging and improving the size of units. It's always something that's important, the livability of units within a building. I'm struggling because it seems like some of that enlargement is in lieu of what I've noticed is characteristic of the character of this neighborhood, which is large balconies. And it seems like there is opportunity to be able to, if not bringing back or integrating some of those balconies as part of the units, finding alternatives for some sort of combined or shared amenity area, if not internally, but even externally. Looking at that one-story extension at the back, there's an opportunity there to be able to do a rooftop amenity on top of that. Obviously, it would require some sort of alteration to units, but when I think about the quality of life of residents within a building, and I think that quality of life can't just be you're living in that space. The amenity space is an important part of living within a building. If it can't be on the roof, is there space on the site? Can that deck and that private deck be something that's open to be a little more public, or is there another space where that could be accommodated? I think the suggestion that the lobby is the amenity falls flat. That really is just a space to move through. So I'd ask you to consider those opportunities, and thank you for your presentation.
Thank you, Eldon. Jana.
Thank you. And thank you very much for the presentation. For me, I'm not sure that this addition is helping much in regard to the surrounding context and in respecting the built heritage features. It is not offensive in regard to the added massing. I don't have much issue with that. It just could and should be, in my opinion, designed with much more emphasis on the surrounding area. One concern with the front addition is for me, is with the windows, the existing windows of the adjacent building, and how close is this addition in regard to the privacy and sun access. It wasn't clear to me from the plans if the basement units would have sufficient access to daylight. But those are maybe minor comments. As Joey mentioned, I'm also not sure if the front central element is very helpful and reminiscing of the existing heritage facade, and maybe it's the materials which were chosen which are of a strong issue for me. But I would really like to encourage you to invite an architect who specializes in heritage architecture to join your project team. I really think it would be beneficial. For me, this element is a nice gesture. It's just as designed, it does not seem to be appropriate for this area. And also, as Eldon mentioned, I really I'm struggling with the corner balconies. They're a common feature for the apartment buildings in this neighborhood, and I would strongly suggest to keep those and not to enclose them. The enclosed corner units, which with corner windows, really do not read as a balcony, as was suggested through the presentation. And my only other comment is that the materials and especially the color scheme are not familiar to this neighborhood, so I would strongly suggest revisiting at minimum the color scheme to be more empathetic to what is in the surrounding area. Thank you.
Jennifer.
Thanks, David. So in general, I agree with the comments my colleagues have provided in terms of the historic character and trying to preserve that existing apartment frontage. But I also do find that bringing the front of the building forward puts it more in line with the rest of the streetscape. So I'm not opposed to that massing addition in principle, but I agree with all the comments that others have provided already. I also do appreciate that you've provided some bike parking. You've had some very thoughtful landscape design and a really good level of detail provided there. I would like to see some more amenity space provided. I agree with the previous comments that a rooftop amenity space could be something that you explore through this. You could even add something as simple as benches in the front yard adjacent to that planted area to provide some amenity at the ground level. And I agree that the lobby space isn't really what I would consider amenity. That's it for me. Thanks very much for your presentations.
Ted.
Okay, thank you. So, what's great about this project is that it's an urban infill. It's retaining an existing amenity. So from a embodied carbon perspective, that's great. And it's densifying an existing neighborhood at a scale that's appropriate. And in fact, I mean, I would be, support greater density, bringing that facade further out in line with the adjacent buildings, I think could be fine. So all of that I think is good. I think the landscape response is well considered. However, there again, no outdoor amenity space for residents. Having said all that, I really can't support this project. I feel that the Art Deco is really is out of context here. If you walk down the street through the neighborhood, it's a vernacular Victorian apartment block, and across the street it's Victorian residential buildings, all of which have significant depth and character to their facade with materials that have intrinsic characteristics and qualities: brick, wood detailing, soffit detailing, balconies, etc., that give it its depth and character, and frankly put people on the street and create a vibrancy to this neighborhood. And I think the removal of the decks on 3 sides and 4 locations on this project is, I think, really diminishing the quality of the experience of the tenants who live in that space. I think outdoor space for everyone should be available. And if you're building a new condo, which in some ways you could view this way as a new apartment, given the major extent of renovation that's being undertaken here and the advancement or the growth of it, that there should be amenities provided for each of those apartment space. So I would be far more in favor of this project if it were adopting a version of the character and scale that exists on the street, and that it was giving all of those tenants outdoor amenity spaces as well. I'm also concerned about the mechanical systems and what we are not seeing. My hope is that that'll all be contained and not make its way to the facade, because that would really be a shame. I think the use of ephes is not a material that is going to last, and we see it on the sides of buildings, but certainly not on the major frontage. I would recommend that this be a project that retains the brick exterior and advances the brick exterior and puts the insulation and the vapor barrier on the inside of the building, creating a much more robust and energy efficient building in that process. So those are my comments. I hope you'll consider them. As I say, I think this is the right kind of development that we want to see in a neighborhood like this. So thank you.
Thank you, Ted. So I'm not sure how much I have to add to the comments of our fellow panelists. I think that the answers to the 3 questions that were asked on the summary I would have to say, are no. It isn't conserving and respecting the existing built heritage features of the area. The materials are not consistent and compatible with the surrounding context. and no, the proposal doesn't contribute to the character and ambience of the community through the appropriate design and streetscapes and amenity areas. And I think that most of those points have been covered by our fellow panelists. That said, I do agree with the nature of the project, the intention to upgrade the systems and, you know, infill and expand the residential, you know, quantity of residential units in the city. I think that with some modest changes that you could, you know, align with some of these character issues that have been flagged here, including, I think, and this has been reiterated, the loss of the amenities in the balconies. I mean, to Ted's comment and Jennifer's comment about the possibility of extending out to towards the street, I think that you could reintroduce those balcony elements and still be within the street line. I know that there's some setback issues that you'd be having to ask for relief from, but I think that it might be possible to pursue you know, the layout that you have and add on to it to reestablish those street related you know, outdoor spaces for at least the front units. But I also think it's worthy of exploration, the idea of leaving the facade as it is and expanding to the back to achieve you know, the increase in rental units that you're seeking. I'm not fully convinced on Ted came down pretty hard there against the EFS there, and it certainly has a bad reputation up until recently, but the industry has made improvements. So I'm not sure it's totally totally inappropriate, and actually from an energy point of view, bringing the insulation to the outside of the structure is, you know, it's not as I mean, inherently is sound, but the ideal solution would be to retain or reinstall the, you know, the brick vernacular that's, you know, throughout the community. So if, I think in many ways, I think I'm just repeating a lot of the comments that you've already received. So I turn it back to you if you have any other questions for the panel before we wrap up. No? Okay, well, thank you very much for your presentation, and I hope our commentary has been useful.
Thank you.
Thank you.